to think of 1,000 details now on top of just trying to survive Sunday. Hey, welcome to the Church Staff Book Club. My name is Jonathan Malm, and I'm here with
Jason Young.
We are hoping to learn together. That's the goal of this podcast. We constantly talk to people who, you know, we're all readers. We're all trying to develop in this leadership ministry world, but it's so much better when we learn together. Whenever we can do this as a staff, when we can do this as a community, just worldwide of people learning together, we all learn more and we learn better. So that's our hope, that you can use this podcast with your staff. You can use it by yourself and just kind of feel like you're learning with us. However you want to use this podcast, we hope it's helpful for you. So the book that we're covering is The Comeback Effect. That is a book that Jason and I wrote. We're not always going to do a book that Jason and I wrote, but that's what we started with. The Comeback Effect is literally about hospitality. How do you create an environment where guests want to come back to your church? Whether first-time guests, fifth-time guests, 100th-time guest, that's the goal of the book, is really creating that environment that just kind of takes it beyond just like customer service or service. You know, it's not customer service. We're not a business, but it takes it beyond this kind of service element to really hospitality. How do we make people feel that, like, I feel like I belong there? Because that's really what we want to do in our churches, right? We don't just want to, you know, have them come in, go out. Okay, that was a good service. We want them to feel like they belong. We want them to feel community. We want them to feel like this is my home. So we're talking about chapter 7 today. Observe details because everything matters. Jason, this is a chapter you probably led the way most on, because this is something you're passionate about and something that you did a lot whenever you're working with North Point Ministries. Do you want to kind of talk about sort of the premise of the chapter?
Yeah, I mean, think about it this way. Guests are always interpreting details. They reveal priorities. The reality is insiders stop feeling, or insiders stop seeing what outsiders feel. And so when we thought about this chapter, it's how can we go back as much as possible to think like a guest, to see like a guest? So when we put this chapter together, it was, let's not think about the big service. Let's think about all the small incremental moments that when you add them all up, you know, gives a guest a total experience. And so a lot of what we're talking about might feel like things that are invisible, but what's interesting is they may feel invisible to you, the insider, but they are more than likely visible to the person who's there for the first or third, you know, newer to your church. So that's what we're talking about. And let me just start with this question, Jonathan, to you. In your experience, like, what details do churches assume are invisible, but a guest actually reads pretty easily?
I think it's not even that they assume. I think they don't even acknowledge that it exists. I think it's one of those, you know, I was in preparation for this, I was thinking about a friend that I had, and he smelled like a cat. Like, he smelled like a cat. He had cats at his house. He was totally unaware that he smelled like a cat, because that was just what his house smelled like, right? Like, his backpack, everything he had smelled like a cat. And I wanted to tell him, I'm like, first of all, I don't know if he can change anything about that, because like when you have cats, a lot of cats, it just takes up the space, right? But he was totally unaware of that. And I feel like that so often happens in our churches. There are just things that we're unaware of that they don't even enter into our mind. Yeah. And it's only when someone visits for the first time who maybe is a little bit brutally honest, maybe like is willing to offend us, I guess, that they tell us like, oh, why does it smell so weird in here? Or why does it look so run down? Or why is that wall little panel not painted? Or why does that paint not match the other paint? Like, little things like that. They're little details, and it can feel so nitpicky. I know this chapter can feel the most stressful if you're like a medium to small size church, because you're like, oh, I have to think of 1,000 details now on top of just trying to survive Sunday. Yeah. But yeah, those little details, they really do communicate, right? They communicate, were we expecting you? I mean, I think about when people come to my house, right? Like, I try to clean all the little spaces that I would never normally clean, because I'm like, oh no, I want to prepare the place for them. I want to prepare a space for them. And whenever people walk into our churches, do they feel like we prepared a place for them? I think about like, you know, like if you're in a charismatic or Pentecostal church, like, or any church, I think there's a lot of churches that do this, but like, you know, they'll have like tissues, right? Like tissue boxes, like just placed places, like underneath seats. And like, that's a really nice convenience. But I think of that as like, that communicates a little bit. Like that communicates they're expecting me to cry. If it's allergy season, they're just it could just be like, oh, they're caring for me because they're probably gonna have sniffles, right? But like they can kind of communicate that we're going to cry. There's little things that we leave out for convenience that often communicate things. So that, I mean, that's kind of, I rambled on there, but that's sort of what I think about when I think of this chapter.
Yeah, no, I think it's good because guests are, all the little examples you gave, guests are always interpreting. So to pick up on some of what you shared, I mean, think about it this way. If silence communicates, disorganization communicates, confusion communicates, warmth communicates, right? All of these things communicate. In fact, one thing I love that we did for this chapter is we created, if you're watching, you're listening, we created a tool for you. It's a detail walk checklist. And by that, you may be wondering, well, like, what am I looking for actually? Can y'all make this super practical and tactical? Yeah, we can. So you're going to have access to a free download, and it'll let you walk through your church as much as possible like a first-time guest and score particular areas. It's broken into categories. It gives you, like, I think it's 5 things in each category from beginning to end, right, from entrance to exit, and it'll let you make some notes, things like that. So it's a resource for you that, again, is it an exhaustive tool? No. But it gets you started, and what could be cool on using the tool is maybe there are some guests that, you want to have follow-up conversations with after you do the tool. Maybe a couple staff members could use the tool, and you have conversations about, what could we do with it? Because the reality is this: when guests show up, they don't experience things from a neutrality perspective. Yeah. They experience meaning. So everything means something. You say, well, like, when you say everything, like, what are you talking about? I mean, now this is going to get nitpicky, but if you're a church that still hands out bulletins, that's not a criticism. Not still hands out. That's not a criticism.
A lot of churches are moving back to that, honestly, because they miss everything not being digital.
Yeah, and having something in your hand sometimes is actually like a comfort or something you can use to talk about safety, right?
Yeah.
But if you're printing those, the type of paper, the visual presentation, is it crammed in there? Is it spaced out well? I mean, details like that.
I would even say though, that there's 2 extremes of that, because you have like, if you're printing on like really nice cardstock and it feels expensive, that can actually communicate a negative thing, that like we're spending so much money on this. Like, are they responsible with running? Like it can communicate on like on the cheap side or on the expensive side.
Yeah.
And I think so much of this we have to filter through the chapter of know your guest, right? Like, what are they expecting to experience? If they are used to eating at McDonald's during the week, then giving something a little bit too luxurious might almost feel like wasteful or almost snobby. So sorry to interject that, but I think there's like, it's not just like we have to do everything the best. Sometimes you do it what's an appropriate, I guess, style for your guest.
Yeah, I mean, what we're talking about is how can we be excellent? Yeah. And what appropriate
excellent
looks like. So,
with whatever our target is, right?
Yeah.
I derailed you. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I'm trying to think directionally.
You think so linearly, and I'm just like always like whip, like I'm all over the place.
No, it's good. Let me ask you this. So when we think about these experiences, when we think about details communicate, when we just everything, are there have you ever been to a church more than once? So this question would require more than a once being at that church, where you noticed something that needed attention to be fixed or whatever it is, and you came back to that church and you noticed it's still broken, dirty, disorganized, etc. Have you ever seen that at a church you've attended, you've worked at?
I mean, I think that's when you go back to the church you used to work at, or you go back to like your parents' church or something like that, where you go back, you're like, oh, it's still the same, and it's one of those it's one of those things you put in a country song, right? Like I went away for 5 years and it's still the same, right? Like, but that is the reality. We're like, I mean, I think about that with cities all the time. Like, how have they not fixed this in 5, 10 years?
Yeah.
But yeah, I've totally seen that. I think about the church that we even had a church building that had, again, there was like this weird panel that like, what it was is it was like a trans like it was, had like a mesh, I guess, for it because there was supposed to be some organs in the back. And this one panel had gotten dust on it. It looked like it was just painted gray, but the panel was dusty. So the rest of the building was kind of like a mauve color, or like a beige color, I guess, right? Like this one panel looked gray. And we moved to another building and another church bought the property. But I went to just check it out one day and they still had that same thing. Like they'd left it that way too. And I was like, that's like, you guys came in with fresh eyes. You shouldn't have left that the way that it was. But yeah, there's this reality of like, once we get past that first impression, we often just kind of forget about it. It's really, if you want to talk about psychologically, right? There's this area of our brain called Broca's area that tries to figure out what things are. You know, as a baby, I have a newborn right now, and she's like looking at her hand, and she's like, "What is this?" Blowing her mind, right? At some point, our brain integrates what a hand is, and so we're not having to have our mind blown every time we see a hand. Otherwise, it would just exhaust us, right? It would stress us out. There's also this element of like we are looking for safety in a new environment, so we're trying to analyze like where can I get out, where can I leave, where is the person behind me a threat to me, like all of these things. And so that's why we're so hyper focused on details, is we're trying to analyze, is this a safe place for me? And once we feel like it's a safe place, then we stop. We just filter out the fact like, oh yeah, that's a hand. We don't even process the fact that there's 5 fingers, a thumb, nails, all the little details, right? So
Yeah.
this is the chapter specifically, I would say, that's like, this is what you work through for your guests. This is what, like, the people who've never been to your church, or maybe only 2 or 3 times, this is where like you can really provide like, hey, this is a safe place for you. And one of the things that I love about the chapter is you really brought this out, and I had never thought this way, even though it's obvious, is think through the 5 senses.
Yeah.
Like we always think about like sight, right? But we often don't really think about smell, unless it's a particularly bad smell.
Yeah.
We don't really think about touch. We definitely don't think about taste when it comes to like an experience, right? But like you mentioned all of these things. And it's funny because there's this one church in town that has like a signature scent. And because I've been thinking about this way so often now, I'm like, oh, it smells so good when I walk into this room, because they have their signature scent, and it's like Starbucks has a signature scent. It's just so interesting because now I really notice those details, especially since I don't attend that church. It's really cool. So let's talk about those 5 scents.
Yeah.
It can feel like overkill a little bit, right?
Yeah.
How's the feel of and we talk about in the chapter, the feel of the napkins, right? Like, I'm like, oh, come on, guys. It's a little like, but there's a reality to it.
It is. And this is where you may watch and listen and say, Jason, you're like, you've gone too far. Maybe, but I think I, with great justification, could defend all the little details, because they may not be a big deal to you, but that's the whole idea of this chapter, and really the book, is we're trying to look at the experience through the eyes of a guest. And so the type of paper towels in your bathroom, the type of soap. Okay, let me give you an example. If your church does this, I'm just going to tell you, you gotta stop this. The airport, a lot of airports do this, but they thin out the soap. So it's like water.
Yeah.
And I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to be economically sensible, and it's like, it's good enough.
Yeah.
Like, to me, like, those are cheap moves that communicate, not positive moments. If you use the, cheapest paper towels, you say, well, we don't have a lot of money. Again, where it's appropriate, do the best that you can, because all these things matter. So when you think about the senses, sound, which I know if you are in production, you're thinking, oh yeah, I hear people tell me all the time, like, it's too loud in here, and you're like, you were fine with it last week and it's the same decibel level, like it is. So if you're production listening, this one is hard to win. But think about the sound, like, in the lobby. Think about
like the volume levels, right? Like, is it inviting volume level, or does it feel like a club? Like all of those. Yeah. Think about sound, even in the parking lot when people are spoken to. Think about sight. I even think about parking lot. One of the things we changed at our church, which I loved, is we fed the service out into the parking lot.
Yep.
Just so you kind of felt like you were invited in, and also it eased some of the stress to know what I was walking into. Like, oh, worship is going on right now. I feel safe that, like, I'm not coming in during the sermon or during announcements. There was a little safety that we focused on there. So
yeah.
I mean, that was something I was really proud of, honestly.
Yeah. No, that's a great example of, hearing. And I mean, but when you think about like sight, like, is it clean? Where are people located? What about the visibility of signage? I mean, we could spend a whole episode talking about signage. Yeah. What does it communicate? Lack of. What does it communicate? When you think about smell, like, do the bathrooms smell? I remember attending...
Which you can't always control what the bathrooms smell like, because one person comes in and ruins it for everyone.
Yeah, like, we won't even go that direction. But yeah, everybody gets the point. But I will say this, in the bathroom, I think just as in a restaurant, in a big box retail, church world, more times than not, the bathroom gets overlooked because it's not in the main quote unquote thoroughfare, maybe of a hallway or a lobby or auditorium or whatever you call this place at your church. I remember I was hired by a church to go through the experience as a first-time guest, make notes. I do this. If I could be helpful to your church, let me know. Do this, create a report with recommendations, And I noticed they wanted 2 visits. So I did 2 visits. And I noticed that when I went into the bathroom, it was a mess. And you say, well, that you just caught them at a bad moment. Fair. While I was there on property, I went to the same bathroom 3 times, not because I had to go to the bathroom, but I wanted to see, did the bathroom ever get cleaned up? So it lets me know somebody's checking the bathroom.
Yeah.
It looked the same all 3 times. When I came back to this for the second observation, I noticed, bathroom got messy again. And so it's just these subtle things that when we pay attention to details like a bathroom, paper towels on the floor, cleanliness, scent, these things are important. Here's something about scent you could try. You might think this is silly. We did communion. I worked at a church. We did communion one particular Sunday, and I wanted to try something different. I wanted to engage the senses, specifically smell, because smell is highly connected to memory. Yeah. So it's interesting. You remember that church experience you had, and you connected it with a scent, right? And so I got these plugins, and I was able to get a bread scent. And so I plugged the bread scent in, used a ton of them, right? Because the building was decent size. And it was interesting. That's one of the things that people commented. So when they came in, you smelled like it was fresh baked bread. Uh-huh. We were having communion. So it elevated the experience, right? I remember at our Christmas services, we, obviously would decorate the building. We would pump pine. It was fake pine scent, but we would pump it in through the HVAC system. And so the moment that you came into the building, it smelled like Christmas. You felt like you were at a tree farm. It just kind of had this nostalgic, vibe to it related to the scent. You saw the trees and the decor, and you heard the music. And so again, it's just kind of pausing and thinking, like, what can we do to engage the senses? You don't have to go crazy. It's just thinking about the small things. Again, I would rather somebody focus on the small things than trying to add something new, these big moments, which brings me to a question I want to ask you.
Well, I want to first talk about the bathrooms. Can I do that? Can you hold your question?
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like people listening, just to kind of push back, I feel like people listening was like, okay, well, like bathrooms, it's such a utilitarian thing.
Sure.
And how can we control what people do? A couple kids go in there and throw the paper towels everywhere, right? Like, one of the things that first impressed me about the church that I attend is they put a candle in the bathroom. Like, it was individual bathrooms, but they put like a little Bath and Body Works candle inside of a little basket, with kind of, it felt like I was walking into someone's guest bathroom at their home. And I was like, how nice.
Yeah.
It was very intentional. The soap looked beautiful. It was filled, even like every Sunday was filled, even though they would fill it, right? It was a little detail, but what to me that communicated care, but also what it did is it communicated that I I should try to clean up after myself whenever I leave the bathroom. There's this one of the coolest things that I remember from the book, The Tipping Point, Malcolm Gladwell. He was talking about how New York City had a graffiti problem on their trains. They were always just graffitiing on the trains. And one of the mayors, one of the things he did is every night for a couple of months, they would paint the trains every single night, basically like clean them every single night. No graffiti could stay. And what that did is it that small detail showed the graffiti artists, well, my work's not going to last, so why should I do it, right? But so creating a clean environment, keeping it clean, actually repelled more dirtiness, if you will, right? So there's this reality of like when we take intentional care of something, it communicates to even our own guests, like, hey, I should probably like maybe I won't trash the place quite so much, right? Like, whereas if it feels very sterile, if it feels very like, kind of messy, kind of gross in the first place, well, I'll just, throw my paper towel there. If I'm not emptying the trash, there's no place to put my paper towel, so I'll just put it on the counter, right? And like it chaos breeds chaos. So anyways, let's talk to you. You can bring your question now, but I just felt like that was an important detail.
Yeah, no, it is. And by the way, you said about the soap being full, like, yes, somebody check and fill soap and paper towels. I mean, again,
small details, but they do communicate.
That's right. Yeah, that it's care, it's preparation. Is your parking lot clean? Do you have like dead plants and flowers everywhere? I mean, there's just, when I think about if you're at a church with multiple services, do you straighten the rows? Do you clean underneath the seats? Do you make sure the things in the back of the seat are, presentable, as if it's the first time that person's walking in and they're seeing it clean and straight, just like the first service did, right? So it's just like all these little details. One of the things I mentioned just a second ago, and I know we can't spend a lot of time on it, is the importance of signage. Again, small little detail, really big message. We've got your back. We can help guide you. Because remember this, volunteers are super important. Signage, super important. You don't have endless supply of volunteers. If you're listening, you're like, oh yeah, I feel that pain. But you don't always need to put volunteers in certain spots where a sign could actually be okay, right?
Yeah.
So, I remember, let me see if I can briefly tell this story. I remember I wanted somebody to critically evaluate. I was on staff at a church. I wanted them to critically evaluate our signage. I read a book, and the book was about people who create things that we don't see them, but we get to feel the positive effects of them. Mm-hmm. This guy created all the signage for the international terminal at Hartsfield, Atlanta Airport. It was a new international terminal, so he did it. So I reached out to him, talked about signage. Okay, that's what he focuses on. He came down to the church and I said, I want you to evaluate signage. And it was fascinating because we had so many great conversations about why do you use signs here? Because a lot of times I'll hear churches say, well, we can't afford it. I often find using like vinyl letters that are really well done on a wall. That's a lot of times what we did to reduce expenses, but still create, directional signage. But he made some interesting comments about signage. Again, small detail. He said, if you are putting signage at the spot where a person has to make a decision, you're late. And he said, that's why at the international, terminal, you'll see multiple moments of the same signage. So it's priming your brain when you have to make a decision.
So you're not going to stop at the 3-way mark, which so many people do in airports. I've seen so often.
Yep, that's right. And so okay, I know when I get up there to the final moment to make a decision, I've been primed, 2 signs back.
Yeah.
Again, the goal inside of an airport, the number one goal, he told me, I didn't even think about this, flow, keep moving. Yeah. And
I would say that's true in churches too, because that's one of the like hostile environments is like an overfilled lobby where you can't move around for a first-time guest. That feels very unsafe. Like I can't escape this place because everyone's blocking me.
Yeah. And again, signage communicates thoughtfulness, right? So let me ask you this question. I know the comeback effect. We talk about creating these experiences using hospitality, all of that. I also recognize that it's not just staff, church staff doing this. It's the volunteers that are doing this as well. So a question I have for maybe both of us to chat through is, how can a church staff member, church staff leader train their volunteers to notice details without overwhelming them?
Yeah. And let's answer that question after we talk about our sponsor. Church first impressions matter, maybe now more than ever. When someone visits your church the first time, that moment shapes how they feel, whether they return, and how connected they become. And at First Impressions, they exist to help you make those moments count. From their First Impressions conference, where leaders gathered to learn practical, proven strategies, to the First Impressions Academy, which is a step-by-step training hub for your entire team, they provide tools that make welcoming guests simple and effective. And if you're ready for deeper support, their Academy plus cohorts or their executive coaching groups guides you in building systems that are personal, repeatable, and sustainable. Whether you're improving your follow-up, strengthening volunteer teams, or redesigning your guest experience, they walk with you so you never have to guess what to do next. Because when you make guests feel known, noticed, and loved, you open the door to discipleship. That's the power of great first impressions. So check out firstimpressions.church. But yes, how do you train a volunteer to notice those details? That's a good question. I think one way that you could do it is to have them go to another church. Assign them, hey, would you visit an excellent church in town? And just notice the things that stand out to you that are good and that are bad. And then evaluate, make a list of them, and then apply that list to our own church. Are we doing well in an area that they're doing badly, or are we doing poorly in an area they're doing well? I think that's so often, that's one of the values of conferences, right? Is like just going to a conference, it gets you into a new space where you just notice things you forgot existed because you noticed them in another church. And then that hopefully primes your brain to notice them at your own church. That's probably one way I would recommend.
Yeah, no, it's really good. I think awareness is actually a hospitality skill. Mm-hmm. And when we think about these skills and details, and what they communicate to a guest, like details are actually, I think about it like this, and you may say, Jason, you're too obsessed, maybe so. Details aren't in the logistics world. Details are actually emotional signals because they shape how people feel. It's not just it's that way because it's a logistical thing we did. It's actually an emotional signal. So when I think about volunteers and training them, I think your idea, great, have them go to another church. I think talk about the experiences that they already have week to week. Where did you shop this week and what did you notice? And again, really what we're trying to do is we're trying to strengthen their noticer muscle.
Yeah.
Because the stronger the noticer muscle, because we notice things anyways. And what we're trying to do is not just do it out there, but do it in here, right? And so, but it's also maybe using the detail checklist that we created specifically for this episode.
churchstaffbookclub.com. You can download it there.
Yeah. Use that. And maybe you want to, maybe you have some volunteer leaders and you pass it out and maybe y'all walk through the church together or separate, and then you come and you talk about it. Again, you're not going to solve it all in one go effort. It's like this, you're strengthening this noticer muscle because here's the thing. You want extensions of you. So you might notice, but really you need 10 people noticing.
Yeah.
The trash on the ground, that wall needs to be touched up, the lack of signage, the music is too loud. Again, we could go through just a list of things, but I really do think hospitality starts with noticing.
Yeah.
And again, the only way is just to start.
I think also you need to give them permission to address it, to say like, hey, you're not gonna make someone feel bad if you mention this. Because I think that's one of those things, like if you don't feel like you belong in a house, I'm never going to tell my friend when I go to their house, hey, why does it smell bad in here, right? Like I'm just like, I won't mention that because that's their house. But if I go to their house so often, and if their mom says, oh yeah, you're like a second son to me, then I'll say, why does you guys' house smell so bad, right? Like why does our house, it feels a belonging thing, right? So we need to give permission to address it, and then maybe even some empowerment to fix it. But then I think another thing we can do is also just, hey, let's sit in this space, in this scene of our church, and what do we smell? What do we see? What do we hear? What do we touch? What do we taste? And just evaluate, right? Like
that's right.
Is it an extreme one way or another? But yeah, I think it's another kind of way to do that. Maybe just you either filter through the checklist that we provided, or you filter through just these 5 senses.
Yeah. Yeah. The fastest way to improve hospitality, so I don't want to overwhelm you, isn't to go do something new or add something new. In fact, I would say don't even start there. I think notice what's already speaking, right? Start with what's already there. If you need to add later, fine. If you need to take away things later, fine. But like things are already speaking. So maybe use a checklist, use your team, see through new eyes. If you could fix some things that are confusing, if there are moments of anxiety, like notice those moments. What can you do in those moments? Are there things that you can repeat that are really, really great and impactful? Like it's not always noticing the things that are wrong.
Yeah.
Notice the things that are right and how you can, multiply those things or celebrate those things. Or if it's happening over there, can it happen everywhere? And, so again, we're not just talking about observe the things that are not going well. It's like, what's going right? And how do we keep those things going on? Because remember this, the goal is to do the small things really well all the time. The small things really well all the time. I think we sometimes think in terms of big, small things really well all the time will make a really significant difference.
And even more is small things changed one at a time will make a huge difference. So here's probably my encouragement as we end the episode is that you have 52 weeks in a year. If you can just make one small change every week to improve what everything at your church is communicating, that, the tissue boxes, make that one change in 1 week, right?
Yeah.
The next thing is paint that wall. All you have to do is one small change every single week, and in a year, you will have revolutionized what your church is communicating. 52 things. That's a huge number of things that you change. So
that's good.
You don't have to do all of this at once. Pick one a week, and you can really change your church. So that's our episode. We hope this was helpful for you. Next week, we'll be talking about chapter 8. Again, if you read the book, if you don't read the book, we hope you'll get something good out of these episodes, but we will see you next week.